welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I, your host, Rebecca, aka Crafting Journey, recap live trials. I am currently covering the trial of Michael Keatley, the Ice Cream Man murders, and then on Saturday, I do a Saturday edition where I'm covering a trial that is in the UK, the trial of Lucy Letby, the nurse in the intensive care unit. Neonatal nurse. Yes, she's charged with 7 murders. So, wow, yesterday, so discombobulated from the back pain. I am still having it. And I'm going skiing in a couple of weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm putting heat on it, taking the muscle relaxer, Tylenol. I'm going to be fine. But it's quite annoying. It's not even, it's more annoying than painful. Like, it's painful, but not, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, it's not like a 10, the pain. It's more like a 3 or a 4, but because it doesn't go away, it's kind of annoying. But the heating pad does help. So, let's talk about the Ice Cream Man murder trial. Yes, the prosecution is getting towards the end of their case. Thank you, Jesus, man. I need a cup of coffee for that. I'll drink to that. Yeah. This, yesterday was day 12. Today's day 12. I don't know. It's crazy. It's been going on for a while. Not as long as the Murdaugh trial, but, long enough. So, the first couple of witnesses yesterday, I apologize. I didn't catch the name. It was an older gentleman, one of the neighbors on Ocean Mist Drive. I think he lived across the street or, a neighbor. And he was familiar with the Ice Cream Man. And he testified through an interpreter, even though he's lived in the United States all his life and he can speak English. His native language is Hispanic and he wanted to speak Spanish. So he was more comfortable, in a court of law that, he understood and that he be understood. And I get it. So he had purchased many times ice cream from the Ice Cream Man before and after these murders. So after the murders, he actually even, the Ice Cream Man, Michael Keatley, would let him run a tab if he, because he didn't get paid but every so often. And then when he got paid, he would make it right and he would pay whatever he owed the Ice Cream Man for his grandkids, to keep his grandkids happy. So the Ice Cream Man, Michael Keatley, actually accused his son. He says, I think your son is the one that shot me, the robbery. And he's like, no, no. And so he tells his son, hey, the Ice Cream Man thinks you're the one that robbed him. So the next person on the stand was his son, who he spoke in English. And he said that he had confronted the Ice Cream Man and said, listen, I am not the one that shot you. Wasn't me. So those were the first 2 witnesses of the day. Then we had a woman by the name of Angela Logan. Now, she is the ex-wife of David Beckwith. Now, you remember David Beckwith, the guy that has a beef with Michael Keatley? Yeah, he's the guy that lived on the property with his brother Larry for a period of time, I guess probably because he was divorcing Angela. And after the robbery of Michael Keatley, Michael and David Beckwith went into partnership. And so Michael would drive the ice cream truck, because of his injuries, he would drive the ice cream truck and David Beckwith would sell the ice cream until they got into a fight one day. And then David Beckwith held a gun to his head, to Michael Keatley's head, said, let me out. And yeah, anyway, the rest is history. So this was, Angela Logan is his ex-wife. So she testified that, and I think this was the reason they put her on the stand, is to give him an alibi. She said that from the afternoon of the 24th, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, they were together. That her whole family had gotten together to smoke a pig, and that smoking takes a very long time, so it was going to require that whoever was doing this smoking of the pig would stay up all night. So, her family was going to stay up with this person. So she was in the process, or they were in the process of maybe getting back together, her and David. So David was with her at this smoking of a turkey. Did I say turkey? What did I say before? Pig. I don't know if it was a pig or a turkey. Thanksgiving. A turkey, I guess? I don't know. Do you smoke? I guess you do smoke turkeys. I've never smoked anything, so yeah, I don't know. I think my son has a smoker. I'm gonna have to ask him. Okay, so and he stayed with her. So from the day, the 24th, that Wednesday, that afternoon, he came over, stayed with her until all through Thanksgiving Day, and then didn't leave from her place till Friday afternoon. So she was with him that entire time. So David Beckwith did not commit the murders. Okay, that was it. That was her testimony. That was why she was brought onto the stand. Weird. Okay. But she did say, the defense got this out of her, that at the time of the murders, that period of time, and she had had an opportunity to observe Michael Keatley, that he had a noticeable limp. Yeah, after the murders, when her ex-husband was working for him, she noticed that Michael Keatley had a noticeable limp. So then, the next person on the stand was Carmen Smith, Wesley Smith's wife. Now, Wesley Smith is David Beckwith's best friend, and Wesley was the guy that lived in that neighborhood, that moved because he didn't like the gang nature of the neighborhood and didn't want his kids associating with the gangs. So he moved to a ranch with his mom, and so Carmen was called to the stand. She's the one that collected the shell casings in her Victoria's Secret bag. So she, very kind of a timid looking woman, she's got a Hispanic lineage. She grew up in that neighborhood. She's been in that neighborhood all her life. She owned a house in that neighborhood, which was on the next street over from Ocean Mist. And she had been with Wesley Smith for 26 years, but they've only been married for 13. So that means at the time of the murders, or at the time they moved out to his mother's ranch, I don't know if they were married. They must have just gotten married around that time, but they'd been together for 26 years. They've got the kids together, but a very timid, beautiful woman, gorgeous, but very soft-spoken, and so she testified that she and her husband went out to the property a few weeks before the shooting. Was it a few weeks before or after? Around that time. Yeah, no, it was before. Early November. She and her husband had gone out to shoot with Michael Keatley on Michael Keatley's parents' property. And she said that she really doesn't like going to shoot, but her husband had asked her if she would go, and she said okay. They wanted to spend some time together. And the reason she picked up the shell casings was because she said it's the right thing to do. You don't, it's just etiquette, I guess. You don't leave a bunch of garbage laying all around. So she went and picked up all the shell casings. Excuse me. So she did observe Michael Keatley shooting, but she said she was standing at least 10 to 15 feet behind him, back at her husband's truck, and all she could see was him from the back. So she couldn't see any, or she didn't have the opportunity to observe any disability that he might have been shooting the gun. And she also didn't know what caliber or what, she didn't know any of that stuff. She did say they were shooting into this white van. So she picked up the shell casings, and that's it. Yeah, she doesn't know if he shot the gun with one hand, two hands. She didn't know. Okay. Then The next person on the stand, and I really listen because sometimes this can be so incredibly boring. The ballistics expert. So the Jennifer Clark with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement was tasked with comparing the shell casings and the projectiles that have been gathered up by law enforcement. So, and she explained to the jury the difference between shell casings and projectiles and all that stuff. So the first thing she did was she took all the cartridge casings that had been collected from the murder scene at 604 Ocean Mist, and she compared them with each other, and she said they all came from the same weapon, which would be a Glock 45. The markings were similar to what a Glock 45 is, and then she said that's how she determines the class of weapon, which is the Glock 45. She compared that to like going shopping at the mall, and you know that you drive a green Ford Pinto, so there could be dozens of green Ford Pintos in that parking lot, but the class characteristics are that it's a green Ford Pinto, and so you're not going to be looking at the white Lincoln or that kind of thing. So that's how it was narrowed down to the Glock 45. Then she took those cartridge casings and compared them to the cartridge casings that were in the Victoria's Secret bag that had been collected by Wesley's wife, Carmen. So she said, yes, they all came. She compared those cartridge casings to the murder cartridge casings and said they all came from the same weapon, a Glock 45. Whoops. But do we really trust that these came from the property of Michael Keatley, that Carmen picked these up from the property? I still think this guy was being set up. I really do. And all of a sudden, this guy who you barely know comes out to shoot on your property before the murders, and after the murders, he's moving out of the neighborhood because he doesn't like the gangs. Yeah, it's kind of suspicious. So, but there's more. There's more. There were also 2 cartridge casings collected from Michael Keatley's property. The night they did the search of his property and vehicle, they found the 2 cartridge casings. Those were also compared to the murder cartridge casings, and they also came from a Glock 45. Not good. So then she compared 3 projectiles that had been obtained from the property of Michael Keatley, from that van that they were shooting at. So those 3 projectiles were collected and compared to projectiles from, these are the actual bullet, they were collected from the murder scene, and she said that they were fired from the same gun. That was her conclusion, that they were fired from the same gun. However, she could not say that it was a Glock. In fact, it didn't appear to be a Glock. The bullets that they just didn't have the characteristics of a Glock. These bullets, that unless the Glock had been modified in some way, which I think is really interesting. So I don't know that any of that I don't know what to do with that information. First of all, I don't know that the jury's going to know what to do with it, because I was snoozing during some of this testimony. It was, that stuff is so dry and so boring and so confusing. Yeah. First of all, they never found the Glock 45. Michael Keatley, they when they searched his property, they never found a Glock 45. Then the next witness was Daniel Beltran. Now, he was another victim from the night of the shooting. He said that he, at the time, was working as a carpenter, but during that particular day, he was doing work as a roofer. So he got off work and he was headed over towards the Ocean Mist neighborhood. I don't think he lived there, but all of his friends did. So he's driving into the Ocean Mist neighborhood, and as he's driving in, Sergio Gitron is driving out. So they stop and he's like, hey, what's the plans? What are we doing tonight? And he's like, we're hanging out over at Walter's place, and we're going to get together and play poker and have some drinks and do some drugs. And he's like, okay, I'm down, I'm there. So he goes home, and then he changes, and the agreement was they'd meet up there about 9 o'clock. So he gets there about 9 o'clock, and there's beer, and he's doing the beer, and he's doing the marijuana, and he's doing the drugs, the cocaine. So he said he was facing out towards this, he could see out to the street. And around 2 a.m., he saw a minivan go by. He said it was dark in color, all one color, maybe a dark green, dark blue, not sure. He saw it go by, and he said, at that time of night, people just don't come into this neighborhood unless they live in this neighborhood. And he didn't know anybody in that neighborhood who drove that van. So it kind of caught his attention. And then he said it wasn't even a couple minutes later that the van comes back in the other direction. So it must have turned around and come back the other direction. And the van stopped. Someone gets out of the driver's side of the van. The light comes on inside the vehicle. The headlights of the van are still on. This guy gets out. And what he could see at that point is that on the back of the black shirt that he was wearing, it said security. And then when he turned around, on the front of his shirt, it said sheriff, and he was carrying a rifle. So Daniel, he stands up when he sees this guy getting out of his van. He stands up. Once he sees that security and that sheriff, he turns around facing the house so he could hide the marijuana. So he's hiding the marijuana. And by the time he turns back around, the guy has already approached the house and is on the steps. And he's saying, where's Creeper? Now, he was about to tell the guy, he lives across the street. But before he could do that, he was just saying, get your IDs out, get down on the ground. Because all this happened very, very quickly. So he gets down on his knees. He said his friend Richard was beside him, and Juan was down the line. He said Juan had told him, hey, let me get my ID out of the vehicle. And he's like, no, get on the effing ground. So Juan gets on the ground, but he's telling him, hey, chill out, man. And when he said that, he got shot in the head. Yeah. And so this guy said, he's thinking to him, he says, I was thinking to myself, well, that's what you get. He says, but I didn't think he really shot him like he shot him with blanks, or he called them bean bags. He shot him with a bean bag, but he didn't think he actually really shot him. But, and then another guy beside him gets shot, and then, so he could hear the guy coming up behind him. So he was really, really nervous. And let me see, I want to get this right. Hold on. Let me turn the page. So at this point, the guy gets to Richard and shoots Richard in the head. So now he knows, holy shit, this is real. This guy cannot be a police officer. So he's signaling to one of the other guys, because there was a beer bottle in front of him and there was a beer bottle in front of this other guy. So he's signaling him with his eyes to grab that beer bottle. And so when the guy comes up behind him, he grabs the beer bottle and he turns around to hit the guy with the beer bottle, swing at him with the beer bottle, and the gunman shoots him in the hip. So he goes down, and now he's trying to crawl towards to get away from the gunman. So he's crawling in front of his friends, Sergio and one other guy. He's crawling in front. Meanwhile, the guy is going around the back, so they're going like this. And he meets up with the guy again. He gets to the railing, and he's shot in the chest. And he falls back through the railing onto the ground. So the guy comes around, sees that he's still not dead, shoots at him again, and it grazes his ear. So by this time, he was able to crawl and get around to the back of the house. How many shots? Oh, wait. Oh. The third time he's shot, it was in the back. Once he falls on the ground, he's shot in the back. He's trying to crawl away. He sees this guy trying to shoot him and going to shoot him again. That one grazes his ear. Then he manages to get behind the house and just crawl to where the fence is. Now he's thinking this whole time, oh, the guy must be, he must be right behind me. So he tries to climb over the fence, and then the fence kind of falls apart. So then he sees a chair. So he crawls over to the chair, and he gets up on the chair, and he throws himself over the fence and lands in a ditch in some bushes. And after that, he hears 4 more gunshots. There's an awful lot of gunshots. Like, he has shot one, he had shot Richard, he shoots this guy 4 times, Daniel, he shoots him 4 times, and he still gets 4 more shots off. What's that, 8, 9, 10? Okay, I don't know how many rounds this rifle held, but, whatever. So, I don't know that much about guns. I really don't. Then he was pretending to be dead. He was trying to be very, very quiet. He had his cell phone on him, so he called 911. And then he called his ex-wife and said, you got to come get me. So he was giving her directions on how to get to him. So he was able to get her to him, and he was able to get himself into her vehicle. He says, take me to Tampa General, and she's like, no, you're too badly injured, that's going to be too far, I'll take you to a closer hospital. By then he could hear ambulances, so he's like, no, take me back to the property, just drive by slowly and we'll see what's going on. So when he got around the block to where the rescue people were, they attended to him. They actually flew him by helicopter to Tampa General to save his life. He did undergo multiple surgeries to save his life. So he did say that while he was in the hospital, he was shown a photo lineup, and he was not able to identify the attacker. Now, he was never asked the question, do you see him in the courtroom? I was waiting for that question. It never came. No. But it came out on cross-examination that this guy has pled guilty to 5 felonies. Various charges like carrying weapons, and possession of cocaine, things like that. So just before the trial started, he was already on probation for one of the prior felonies, and these all occurred after the shooting, like in 2020, 2022. So a couple of weeks before the trial started against Michael Keatley, he was in court, and he was facing, according to the score sheet, a minimum of 29 months in jail, which is like 2 years and 4 months, and anywhere from 29 months to 45 years in jail for whatever felony and violation of probation that he was looking at this judge for. He ended up, his attorney went to the state attorney's office and said, hey, I understand this guy's a witness in your case, he's a victim, what can you do for me? And over objection by the prosecution, the defense was able to let the jury hear that the prosecution helped him out because they didn't want to have to bring in this guy in shackles from prison to testify. They wanted, him to come in, because this guy was blubbering the whole time. He was just, tears are coming out of his eyes as he's describing the shooting. So he ended up only getting 5 years probation. State attorney was able to come through on mitigation, and he's on probation. So here's the thing about all of these shooting victims. They're all I don't know, career criminals for the most part. And is what they're saying really credible? The witnesses, David Beckwith and Wesley Smith, have criminal backgrounds, have really motivations to lie. What? I'm confused about what the hell really did go down at that place that night. I really am. And who the perpetrator really was. Oh, the last thing Daniel testified to was, hey, was he walking normally that night? Did you see anything abnormal about his movements? Oh, no. No, not a thing. No hand disability, no inability to shoot that weapon, no inability to go after him on the lawn and shoot him in the back. Yeah, no. Isn't that weird? No. So is it really the defendant? I don't know. I think I have some reasonable doubt, don't you? Yeah. All right, let's look at the calendar. I'm so anxious to see the calendar, because where we left yesterday was the Hart family. Remember I showed you the picture, that famous picture of the 12-year-old boy, Devontae Hart. He was at a Portland, Oregon protest. Well, his mothers, Jen and Sarah Hart, were gay, obviously, and they got a lot of flack. They got a lot of death threats, and ended up dead. So let's see what's on tap for Tuesday. So Jen and Sarah Hart met as elementary education majors at a college in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A few years later, in 2004, they began fostering a 15-year-old girl. The girl described tensions with the women, but nothing so bad that she had any plans to leave their home before turning 18. When the Harts made plans to adopt 3 young siblings from Texas, the girl was excited to serve as big sister. A week before the children were to arrive, the Harts dropped the girl off for a therapist appointment. Without warning, the therapist told her that the Harts would not be returning for her. She went straight from the therapist's office to a new foster home and never saw the Harts again. That's terrible. Oh my God. What a way to treat kids. Jesus. The newly adopted children, Marcus, Hannah, and Abigail, then 6, 2, and 1, arrived as planned a week later. The family moved to Alexandria, Minnesota the same year, and in 2008, the Harts adopted 3 more children from Texas, Devontae, Jeremiah, and Sierra, then 6, 4, and 3, respectively. Allegations of child abuse followed soon after. Oh my God, what is wrong with these women? So tomorrow we're going to talk about the abuse that these kids were suffering at the hands of these 2 women. Oh my God, that's sad. Okay. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the content today. Have a great Tuesday. I'm going to go lay down, put my back on that heating pad. I will see you guys tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a great afternoon. Bye, everybody.